oficial doc.rust.lang.org. Um bom livro é The Rust Programming Language, de Steve Klebnik e Carol Nichols. Aqui está o link da documentação, doc.rust.lang.org. Se precisar de mais informações, me avise.
Vamos ver aqui as informações. E as referências. Eu vou entrar aqui no YouTube, procurar algum vídeo aqui básico de Rust. Ver se tem daquelas séries do tipo Crash Course. Começar com isso aqui. Rust em 100 segundos.
Gerencie sua equipe e distribua as tarefas como quiser com o Hanhanity. Quer ver as etapas? Use a visão Kanban. Precisa gerenciar a pauta e os prazos? Mude para o Gantt.
Rust, a memory-safe compiled programming language that delivers high-level simplicity with low-level performance. It's a popular choice for building systems where performance is absolutely critical, like game engines, databases, or operating systems, and is an excellent choice when targeting WebAssembly. It started as a side project of Great on Core in 2007.
Então, os principais pontos: segurança da memória, o ownership, que eu entendi que é um dos principais diferenciais em relação entre o Rust e outras linguagens. Sistema de propriedade e empréstimo, para evitar problema de concorrência e uso incorreto da memória. Facilita a escrita de código concorrente seguro. É uma linguagem que pode ser utilizada com um desempenho comparável a C e C++. Ecossistema em crescimento, com gerenciador de pacotes. Posso instalar o Rust usando o Ruststop. Aqui um exemplo de um Hello World bem simples. E a documentação oficial é isso aqui. O livro do Rust. Tem uma versão mais interativa. Vamos ver aqui, instalação. Vamos ver aqui se já está instalado. Não, nessa máquina eu nunca instalei Rust. Como instalar o Rust no Mac? Instalação default. Tá instalando aí. Enquanto isso, vou assistir aqui. Não vou rodar Udemy, porque Udemy aqui tem um problema de direito autoral que aí no YouTube fica melhor. Procurando aqui alguma fonte de informação que eu já conheço, já confio um pouco melhor. Essa é uma delas. O Zero to Mastery. Ele tem um curso de algoritmo, estrutura de dados e preparação para desafios técnicos, que é muito bom. Então, é uma fonte que eu considero confiável. O outro aqui é esse Free Code Camp, muito bom também. Só que os vídeos acabam sendo muito longos. É muito bom, só que é muito completo. Eu acabo não tendo todo esse tempo disponível. Vamos ver aqui. Está instalado. Preciso reiniciar meu shell. Agora vamos ver se já está funcionando. É, está instalado. Tá, o update funciona assim. First up, update. Ok, então esse é o Hello World. Escrevi errado. Rust seed, Rust compiler. Certo. E aqui eu já poderia rodar. ./main. Consigo rodar. Rodou. Hello World em Rust. Tá, então eu tenho um exemplo de um Hello World, eu tenho o compilador funcionando, sei o passo a passo para rodar, sei o básico aqui da linguagem, principais vantagens, tem o link da documentação e referência de um livro e videoaulas onde eu posso aprender mais. Já é um bom começo.
Welcome to this Rust programming course.
What is going on, peeps? It is Aldo from Zero to Mastery, and today I'm excited to introduce to you our latest crash course, Rust 101 by Jason Lennon. You can check out our other crash courses on React and Python, and more to come soon on our main channel page. There's so much I can say about Jason, I really don't know where to start. But let me say this, Jason is an outstanding instructor who started his journey as a self-taught developer, and from there he transitioned into a university student. But why is this important, you ask? Because this gives Jason a dual perspective that most instructors out there simply do not have. Jason understands the struggle of being a self-taught developer, but at the same time he recognizes how difficult it can be to understand complex matters as a university student, which is what makes him so great, his ability to break down complex topics in a fun and digestible way. And now you're getting to learn Rust from him for free. You better be excited. Now, you've heard me talk about what makes Jason such an excellent instructor. But how does he actually help you understand these difficult topics? Well, Jason is a huge believer in the concept of learning by doing, and that's what you guys are going to do. In this video, Jason's going to start from the very beginning and teach you the complete fundamentals of Rust from scratch. From there, you'll have the ability to work on numerous different activities to really help cement those topics. There are 19 activities in this crash course alone. If you end up liking this video and want to dive deeper into more complex Rust topics, then I highly recommend you check out his complete Rust Bootcamp course, where there are a lot more activities for you to get your hands on. But not only will you be working on activities, with this bootcamp you'll build two massive projects. One being a billing application, the second being a clipboard web service that includes handlebar template rendering, state and cookie management, and even database connections. You can check it out using the link in the top right hand corner, but enough chit chat from me. Let me hand it over to Jason so you can start learning Rust. Enjoy.
O que é o ClickUp? O ClickUp é um software de produtividade completo, que te permite gerenciar tudo o que você precisa relacionado ao seu trabalho.
Welcome to the Rust course. If you want to write blazing fast programs that are easy to maintain, fun to write, and almost never crash, then you are in the right place. In this video, I'll be going over some basics about the course and what you can expect. Why Rust? Rust has high-level language features without any performance penalties. The language design allows program behaviors to be enforced by the compiler. This greatly enhances program reliability. It has built-in dependency management, similar to the NPM registry in JavaScript. There is a quickly growing ecosystem of libraries that can be used in your programs, and there is a fantastic developer community that is friendly and generally welcoming to new contributors. Here are a few features that set Rust apart from other languages. Rust has first-class multi-threading support. It is actually a compiler error to improperly access shared data. This makes writing threaded code easy. It has an advanced type system that is powerful enough to help uncover bugs at compile time, makes refactoring a breeze, and reduces the number of tests needed to ensure your code is correct. Rust has a robust module system with flexible rules that allow you to separate your code as much or as little as you like. Adding a dependency is just one line in a configuration file. All that is needed is the name of the library and a version number. Once these are added, the library can be used in your project, and it will be automatically downloaded and linked on the next compilation. Lastly, Rust comes with tools to generate documentation, link your code for common problems, and automatically format your code to conform to consistent style used across all Rust projects. Here's a little bit about the course. Rust is different than many languages by design, and using concepts and idioms from other languages like Python, C# or JavaScript will result in frustrating errors. To alleviate this, I employ a clean slate approach in the course and assume each topic is a brand new, never-before-seen concept. So the topics start at the most basic level and slowly build upon each other into a coherent whole. This is important because subtle language differences determine whether you are learning Rust or learning how to fight the compiler. Finally, there are over 40 coding exercises to help become familiar with writing programs in Rust. I hope you enjoy the course. I'm looking forward to teaching you Rust. In this video, I'll be explaining what data types are in programs. I'll give you some examples of basic data types, and I'll explain how programs use binary to store any type of data. Memory only stores binary data. However, anything can be represented using binary. Usually, the programmer works at a higher level than binary, so you generally don't need to worry about the underlying binary data. Programs determine what this binary data represents, and the code that you write is automatically converted into binary representations. Basic types that are universally useful are provided by the language itself. However, we're not limited to just these types that are provided. You can create your own types that you need for your specific problems, and we'll be covering that in later videos. The basic types provided by the Rust programming language is the Boolean type. The Boolean type is either true or false. The next type is an integer type. Integers are just whole numbers. Some examples are 1, 2, and 50. Negative numbers are also covered by the integer type. Double or floating point numbers are decimal point numbers. 1.1, 5.5 are both examples of double or floating point numbers. Characters are just single characters that you see on your keyboard. Capital A, capital B, lowercase c, the number 6, and a $sign. Note that with characters, we surround them within a single quotation mark, and the character 6 is separate from the number 6. So if you want to use the number 6, you would do so without the quotation marks. But if you want the number 6 to be displayed as a character, you would use the quotation marks. The difference is, when we have the quotation marks, this means that this character will be displayed to the user. Without the quotation marks, it is now suitable for usage in mathematical operations. Lastly, we have the string type. Strings are just a string of characters. We use double quotes to denote strings, and you can have any number of characters between double quotes. To recap, anything can be represented with binary data. The basic data types are Boolean, integer, double and float, character, and string. In this video, I'll be covering variables. I'll be explaining what variables are, how they help programmers, and how to use variables in your programs. So what is a variable anyway? Variables are a way to assign data to a temporary memory location, which allows the programmer to easily work with memory. So I know we've covered memory in previous videos. However, all of that can be abstracted away using variables, which keep track of all that for you. This makes it much easier to reason about your programs, since all you need to do is create a variable name, and everything happens behind the scenes. So variables can be set to any value and any data type. By default, variables are immutable, but they can be made mutable. Immutable means the data cannot be changed once the variable is created. And this is a default because it makes it easier to reason about programs and less likely to make programming errors. Additionally, the language is able to increase the speed of your program when you have immutable data, because it doesn't need to check if anything was changed, because nothing can change since it's immutable. And conversely, mutable just means you can change it later. So here's some examples. This is also the first time we're seeing Rust code, so this is actual code that you would be typing if you were to be making a program. So let's start from the beginning. First, we have the word let. This is a keyword in the Rust language, and it's used for creating variables. Next, we have the variable name. This one is name2. We use a single equal sign to assign a value to the variable. Next, we have the number 2. This is the data that's being assigned to the variable. Lastly, we end the statement with a semicolon. Variable assignments always end with a semicolon because you're taking a single action. We're just creating a variable, and then we're done. The semicolon indicates to the language that we need to move on to the next line. So whenever the semicolon is encountered, it will move on to the next. So if you were to read this in plain English, you would say, let some variable named 2 be assigned the value of 2. And so the 2 will then be within that variable named 2, and you'd be able to use it throughout your program. Next, we have let some variable named hello be assigned the string hello. So if you recall, strings use double quotes. So this data is a word, and it is going into the hello variable. Let some variable named j be assigned the character j. This is a character because we have single quotes, so we can put one character into the j variable. Let some variable named myHalf be assigned the value of 0.5. Variables can have more than one word in their name, so you'll use an underscore to separate words within a variable name. This can be useful to make variables easier to read versus placing all the words smashed together. Next, we have let a mutable variable named myname be assigned the value of Bill. So again, we have another string. This time, however, we have a mutable variable. So this variable myname can be assigned a different value later. So right now, it has the value of Bill, but later on, we can change it to a different name. Let quit program be assigned the value of false. So this is a Boolean variable, and it's named quit program because perhaps it determines whether or not the program ends. it's really useful to name variables in a way that represents what they are supposed to be accomplishing. This helps later on when you go to read the program. It helps you follow the logic of your program much easier. Last, we have let your half be assigned the value my half. As you can see, my half is not a Boolean value. It's not a string, a number, or a character. So what's going on here? So let's walk through it. If you'll notice, my half down here is the same as my half here. What we're doing, we're actually assigning your half the same value as my half. So let's walk through at each step on the way to see how that occurs. So in the my half variable, we have 0.5, which then gets assigned to my half. Here, down in your half, we have the my half variable. So this will then get assigned to my half. So that is 0.5. And then it in turn gets assigned to your half. The end result is both your half and my half have the value of 0.5. As you can see, this can get pretty complicated pretty quickly. We only have a few lines of code here, and already there's lines kind of scribbled all over the place. So in the next video, we'll be covering how to keep all this organized in a way that is easy to follow versus having a block of 7 or 8 variables all in one place. To recap, variables make it easy to work with data, and in turn, memory. Since you don't need to memorize any memory locations, the variables take care of all that for you. Variables can be assigned to any value and any data type. This includes the value and types of other variables. By default, variables are immutable. However, you can use the mut keyword to make them mutable if you need to change it later on in the program.
Jose is a triathlon athlete in Rio de Janeiro. He's also a C# developer, managing a crucial safety system for hospitals.
In this video, I'll be going over functions. I'll be explaining what functions are, how to make functions, and how to use functions. So what are functions? Functions are a way to encapsulate program functionality. They can optionally accept data, and they can optionally return data. They're utilized for code organization, and they also make code much easier to read. Let's take a look at the anatomy of a function. So here we have a function. It's composed of many parts, which I'll be breaking down. First, we have the fn keyword. So fn begins a new function. Next, we have the name of the function. The name can be anything as long as it does not start with a number and is not an existing keyword. So we can't make a function that's named fn because fn is already a keyword in the Rust language. Next, we have the function parameters. So the function parameters dictate what kind of data this function works with. Function parameters always begin with an open parentheses and end with a closing parentheses. The a and the b are variables that will be used within the function. After the variable name, we have a colon. After the colon, we have the type of the parameter that is accepted for this function. The function parameter type can be any type that's made by you or that's part of the Rust language. In this case, the i32 is just a 32-bit integer. You can also have multiple function parameters. You separate them with a comma, and then they follow the same pattern. Name of variable, colon, and then the name of the type. Usually with functions, you'll accept some data through the parameters, you'll then do some calculations, and then you'll return some data. To return data, we create an arrow. The arrow is composed of a dash and a greater than symbol. We then specify the type of data we're returning. In this case, we are returning a 32-bit integer from the function. Once the data gets returned from the function, it will be able to be used elsewhere in the program. Lastly, we have the function body. The function body is surrounded by an opening curly brace here and a closing curly brace here. Everything between these braces is called the function body. The function body for our particular function is just a plus b. So this function is going to add together an a value and a b value. We know from the function parameters that the a is a 32-bit integer and the b is a 32-bit integer. And so these 32-bit integers are represented by a and b. And within the function body, we have the a and the b. Now that we know how to make a function, let's see how we can actually utilize it in the program. So here at the top, we have our add function that we just created. And we also are creating some variables down here. So we'll take a look at this first one here. We're using let x. So we're creating a variable named x. We're setting it equal to the value returned by this function add. So when we want to use a function, it's known as calling a function. So what we're doing here when we have add, we're calling this add function. We're calling it with the values of 1 and 1. So when you call it, you have to have parentheses along with the values that are going to take the place of the parameters. These values that are provided to the function, they're called function arguments. So the argument for the a parameter is 1, and the argument for the b parameter is also 1. So when we call this add function, this one here will go into this a, this one here will go into this b. Once the function begins executing, this a will go here, this b will go here, and we'll get 1 plus 1. That's because our a value here is a 1, and our b value here is also 1. After this 1 and 1 get added together, we'll get a 2. And since we reached the end of the function body here, there's nothing past this point, this 2 is going to get a return. And 2 is an integer, so it's valid for an i32 integer. The number 2 is going to return here, and then the 2 will get assigned to x. So you can think of calling add with the values of 1 and 1. You can just think of this whole thing as the number 2, which is then placed into x. So our x will now be equal to 2. Let's go ahead and do another one. We'll take a look at let y equals. We're going to let the variable y be equal to the value of the function add with function arguments 3 and 0. So when we call this add function, this 3 will come up here to the a, so that will be 3. The 0 will come to the b, and that will be 0. Once execution enters this function, we have our 3 and our 0 there. So the a will come down to the a variable, the b will come down to the b variable, then we'll get 3 plus 0 is equal to 3. There's nothing left in the function, so this will return as a 3. That will then replace this portion here.
Então é isso, pessoal. O meu objetivo com esse vídeo é documentar o meu processo de aprendizagem de uma nova linguagem de programação. Então é isso. Eu botei o tempo bem curto, realmente, porque Rust é bem legal, mas não é a minha prioridade no momento. É uma coisa que eu quero aprender, mas não vou dedicar tanto tempo quanto outras coisas, como, por exemplo, a certificação da AWS, que está sendo tema de outros vídeos.